Obviously a really good win for our team tonight. I thought the game took on several different levels. In the first half, we came out, like we've come out pretty much the last, since we got back from pause, maybe even a little before that, where we had a lot of intensity defensively, sitting down and guard, making things difficult on a really good offensive basketball team with a lot of good pieces. And then it seemed like once we started flowing offensively, we hadn't felt that before. We were passing the ball and we're getting layups, threes, penetrating kicks. It's the way we're supposed to play offensively, and the way we will play offensively as we continue to understand. But we fell in love with that. We were almost surprised by it. And then what happened is I think we fell in love with offense and didn't do a good enough job defensively. And we made major lapses defensively in the first half. I did a poor job the last 3 minutes of the first half in terms of the guys who are in the game. One thing I always try to do is I try to get everybody in the first half. So if we need them in the second half, they stay locked in. I thought I forced that a little bit. Then in the second half, it was a game of runs. And, what Keith Williams did tonight from a sharing the ball standpoint, and we showed him film before the game of how they guard. And, I really felt like, really, really made right decisions. We're typically 4 shots, but he really, really made the right decisions tonight. So I was excited about that. And then DeJulius pretty much took over what he needed to do and really put us in position to finish. So it's a lot of really good individual performances from our guys. I think we're at a point right now where we love close games. So we're going to play a lot of them. And, I thought they had some crazy shots, the halftime shot that they hit, and the last 3 that they hit to keep it close were really tough, difficult, highly difficult shots. So really proud, had a chance to now go 5-4 in the league and trend in the right direction in a league where you just don't know how many games teams are played. I guess we're 2 games out. My dad always used to say it's all based on losses. So 2 games out right now, with Houston on Sunday.
Go ahead to questions, guys.
Coach, you've had to change the way you play a little bit, partly just because of the roster coming back. Do you feel like this team or you have figured out the identity yet?
I do believe. I think our identity is our half-court defense. We're physical. We fly around. We make plays. We played. I don't know what the points per possession were. We still play quick, but we've kept teams under 70 during the streak and kept them usually around between 60 and 63. So that's not what matters. It matters the points per possession. So I think we're starting to understand who we are defensively. We'll extend the court when we need to. Probably should have a little bit more tonight based on the fact that they had 3 games in 5 days. But right now our guys are really hanging their head on their half-court defense.
David talked about getting guys to play more together. You've talked about that as well. How difficult is that? Especially, you've also talked about the strength being in your depth. How hard is that to get guys to buy in when everyone wants to be in there?
Yeah, that's a hard part, Justin. It started with everybody wanting to play based on, as long as things go well for me, I'm going to be fired up about the next day. And if they don't go well for me, well, then I'm gonna be a little immature. And now I think they understand that what happens when you win, everybody eats, right? Everybody has an opportunity. I always share the story of, Coach Donovan's first national championship team, where maybe it was the second one, back-to-back ones. I don't think anybody averaged over 12 or 13 points a game. I think one guy averaged over 30 minutes a game. One guy. So that ability to share and understand that, maybe it's Chris's night one night. Maybe it was Tari's night, one night, which it was his night in the Tulane game. Maybe it's Zach's one night. Different guys are going to step up. So they got to understand we got to utilize that depth that you can be called on at any time. We got to be better at that. I didn't think our bench was ready tonight at the end. I rode that group at the end, the last 6 minutes, because quite honest with you, I didn't think guys were engaged. I thought we got a little into ourselves a little bit during a few timeouts where we got to stay engaged to the team and understand, it could be a different person step up each night, and that's what strength in numbers provide you. That's also what high character kids provide you. And at the end of the day, they're high character, so they get it. And I always tell them, in the moment, you don't have to be happy, but you got to express to your teammates you have joy for their success.
You've kept the same starting lineup over these past few games. Does that allow you to kind of be more creative about how you use guys like Adams, Woods, and Harvey and Eason off the bench?
I don't know if it's creative, but it certainly allows us to give a different look. I think Mike is playing some of his best basketball coming off the bench, seeing the game before he comes in, for us to see the game and understand where matchups are going. No, I think that's really insightful. I think, it does give us an opportunity to put guys in right positions. And it seems to be working right now. Obviously, Mike Saunders still learning to be able to play at this level with the right decision-making. I'd like to really get more out of him from using from a more of a defensive standpoint. Hopefully this week will allow us to do that.
John, you talked about the strength in numbers. Is it also important to have someone willing to be a closer? And we've seen David do that multiple times this year.
Well, Joe, you and I are both huge Reds fans growing up here. And, you got to have a closer, right? I mean, all the great Reds teams, except 74, 75 had a closer, but those guys hit the ball, scored all the runs regardless of whether it was a closer. For this team, it's good to have guys down the stretch close. I thought David did that tonight, but I think it could be maybe one or two guys that could do that on different nights.
Hey, John, what part of the game this year do you think has been especially impacted by the start-stop nature of the season?
Fluidity of the game, Doc, where at this time of year, you're usually seeing the ball hop around. You're usually seeing skill come out. You're usually seeing, what you would say is aesthetic basketball maybe. You just don't have that opportunity to build that fluidity and that togetherness and that feeling like, okay, you and I are so connected. I know where you're going to be. You know where I'm going to be without even saying anything. I think, the really good teams show that at this point in the season. We showed it for a small bit for the first time all season in the first half. I kind of surprised us how it sort of affected defense a little bit. I think that's the biggest thing. So our preach is just we got to play with an edge. We got to play hard. We can control that. We can't control the fluidity and being in sync. It makes it just too difficult to create that.
Would you have a guess as to where your team is this year as opposed to a normal year? How far along are you now compared to where you would be had you not had the COVID situation?
Yeah, I think probably with what the schedule says, 14 games in, you just played your first conference game, right? So I think that's probably where our team would be. Probably exactly where the schedule says if you went back and played a 31-game schedule.
John, the schedule says the next game is Houston in a week. Is there a possibility there could be a game midweek added, kind of like we saw at the end of last week?
There's always a possibility. And I think right now we've got, if you can count the teams, right? Memphis, Wichita, East Carolina, South Florida. I think, the schools that we still have to try to make one up with. We knew going in all along that this was going to be the week to do it. That we were focusing on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. Right now, none of those teams are available. So we've been told by the league right now, sit tight, see what happens. I think Mother Nature is going to play a part in it from what I understand. So as of right now, Joe, I think it's trending in the direction of not playing, but to even predict that is impossible in this environment.
John, do you have any thoughts on teams opting out of conference tournaments?
I think, your job as a leader and job of your program and the athletic directors is to protect your student athletes. So if they feel like it's there to protect their student athletes, then that's the number one reason those are decisions we're making to protect our student athletes. And I think if you keep that in mind, you're going to make the right decisions. I do think there's a level of maybe gamesmanship involved, and I mean that not in a negative way. The selection committee, and rightfully so, hasn't come out and told us how they're going to seed or how they're going to bring teams into the fold, right? We have no idea if it's going to be the eye test, if it's going to be metrics. We're guessing. And if you remember in the summer, I pushed hard for that, What's going to be the criteria? What's going to be the criteria? And I understand you may not know what it's going to be then, but the bottom line is now teams may get creative. Let's say you're 11-2 and have a 4-week pause. Are you better off? But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to your student athlete. So that's how we make decisions here. We don't base it on the gamesmanship. We base it on the student athlete. And I think we've made the right decisions at this point.
John, I asked David and Julius how this team, when you look back, didn't just give up when you start 2-6 and things just aren't going your way early. And he said, first thing he said was the Cincinnati name on his chest and the pride and that you saw the light at the end of the tunnel. How do you see this team playing with pride and playing with that, he said, swagger now these last 4 games?
Well, they're gaining some confidence, and confidence is only gained through performance. I tell my twins that all the time. I can't inject confidence in you. I can inject your support and love, but your performance will ultimately lead to your confidence. Our guys are now understanding what it takes to be successful, and that's defense. And since they've done that, they've gained some momentum. We're more connected defensively, which makes us more connected offensively, which makes us a harder out. You become a really good basketball team when you're hard out, when you're hard to beat, because you're not going to come in every night and beat people. You need to be a hard out. And right now, I think we're trending at least in that direction.
Is that what's happening with Chris? Is he just gaining confidence and keeping that aggression up?
Well, I think for Chris, I think he gets a lot of unfair criticism amongst our fans a little bit because, bottom line is he impacts the game a great deal. And what I mean by that is he knows where to be. He's in the right position. I mean, if you're a coach and you're watching the game, you know how much he impacts the game. So do I think he's playing with more confidence, Keith? I do. More important, I think he's playing with way more aggression and way more toughness that leads maybe to the confidence piece.
Anything else for Coach? All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys. You good?